Issa was dethroned this year. Eduarda came in, took that slot, and it's the new standard, so to speak, for the wellness division. What happened to Issa? Why did she fall in placings? Why wasn't she able to retain her title? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to compare actually her physique from 2024 over here to 2025. And we're going to highlight all those points and go through that together, talk about those placings, why they landed the way they did, and ultimately what that's going to mean for you, right? What it's going to mean for you as a wellness competitor the rest of the season if you're still competing, or definitely going into 2026 season. What are they looking for in wellness, and what do you need to know? That's what I'm covering on this channel all the time. So subscribe if you're new here, hang out with me. And if you're a repeat viewer, drop me a comment. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, so Issa 2024 look right here, her Olympia win versus this year, 2025. So interestingly enough, what we can see is a lot of similarities between these physiques with a few differences that I think are important to note. First thing that we could really look at is her shoulder shape and density, right? Fullness overall. So I do think in 2024, her Olympia win, she had a little bit more shoulder fullness, a little bit, just a tad more of that fullness and shape to her delts, right? You can see a little bit more of that front delt, lateral delt, and it just appears to pop a little bit more, be filled out a bit more there. So a softer, more fuller look in the upper body, which is really key in wellness division because it creates, again, the first piece of our V-tapered look. And now we see that pretty apparent on her. It showcases pretty well. If we look into the arms, the biceps and triceps, they don't really detract anything. You know, the lat isn't a huge issue here, and it sweeps down into a pretty narrow waist look for the most part, which gives us a very wellness-esque upper body into that V-tapered look. All of it's coming together. Now, if we flash over here to 2025 this year, I think there's some differences that we need to note. Not huge significant, but could be the factors. We're talking about just points of separation between Eduarda, the new Olympia winner, versus Issa at this point. So we see good shoulder shape. It's all still there. Not necessarily as filled out though. It definitely appears a little bit more depleted, just a little bit less of that volume in the shoulders there. So, that can be kind of an indicator of a peak thing that could have been addressed or changed, or maybe it's, at her level, I highly doubt it's anything besides that, really. I mean, on other competitors though, for the sake of commentary, I see it all the time as a coach where that can be simply because you're not training correctly. Obviously, Issa's training probably 100% correctly, but her shoulders do appear just a little bit, depleted here, a little bit not as full as over here this year. And I think that does make a big difference, right? The other thing I noticed right away is biceps and triceps do appear to just be a little bit more dominant this year than they did this year. So, that size difference is pretty apparent. So that when you have a little bit coming down in the shoulders, you got a little bit coming up in the bicep and tricep, it makes your upper body look a little bit less dramatic. And that's the big deal in wellness, right? That's the big thing. The other thing that indicates to me she might be just a little bit more depleted up top is just how many veins she's showing. So we see a lot more veins in the bicep, into the forearm, and even into her chest. We don't see that going on over here in the chest. We see just a little bit right here in the bicep, but nothing like over here. She's leaner. She's showcasing a little bit more muscle because she's leaner that way, but also that muscle's not looking as full. It's looking a bit more depleted, which again, a lot of times when you're chasing condition, you do see that on competitors. So fullness and a little bit more fullness and softer over here in the upper body, a little bit harder and maybe more muscular in certain areas like the arms. I think that's important to note because again, the more lean and bigger you look in wellness. I did a full video on wellness. If you didn't watch it, top 16 is a pretty long video, but it covers everybody and it gives you really good insight. Issa's right there. She's second in the world. She's former Olympia champion. I mean, she has the look that is wellness, no doubt, but that is a big difference from her and Eduarda, which you'll see in some future videos too. So subscribe, okay? Now, midsection, I want to look at this because this is not huge changes. What we can see midsection wise from her 2024, just a very slight inkling of an oblique. She doesn't really ever dial that oblique like, heavy with muscle. It really just comes in from diet. So she has a narrow waist, a little bit of an oblique line. Over here, same thing. Her pose is a tad bit different. So maybe that's given her just a little bit more of a narrow waist look than over here. But that's not necessarily to say that's an advantage. You really got to know where your angles are when you're posing in wellness, because sometimes it's actually making your lower body look a little bit more full. Sometimes it's making it look a little bit more narrow. You really got to know those things. So sometimes it's actually an advantage to have a little bit of a wider waist look in wellness in a pose, because it makes your physique look maybe more muscled like it should lower body. So it's one of those things you really got to know. Relatively though, I would say she's about in the same spot midsection wise here, right? So no improvement, no pullback, nothing wrong, but didn't really improve. Lower body wise though, pretty big difference, right? We look over here in 2024, we can see good overall glute density, glutes from the front. In wellness, I always talk about that. The upper glute is pronounced, it's developed, it's rounded, and a good, balance between the quads and the hamstrings overall from what we can see in this front shot. Looking at over here, 2025, pretty massive improvements in the glutes. Like they're definitely hypertrophied a lot. She made a lot of improvements here. Upper glute showing more. It's definitely gonna be fuller and rounder from the back, and we can see just more size and density. That does correlate over to her quads just a tad as well. The interesting thing is, right, we're seeing like lower body came up a lot. Upper body didn't really change all that much. But basically what was going on over here, over there, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. It's kind of, I know a lot of people are like flabbergasted by this placing, but you got to factor in Eduarda still. Eduarda did edge her out. We're going to do an Eduarda versus Issa video. So that's coming up soon, where I'll highlight those points a bit more for you side by side, just really break it down. But Issa did improve. She really did. She really did bring a lot of improvement here. When we go to the back, though, some things are going to change. First, though, I want to talk about this. Free coaching trial. Train with me free for 7 days. I don't just do these videos. I also coach. I've done it very successfully for a very long time. Put thousands and thousands of top athletes across stages. And I'd love to bring you in, let you try it out, let you experience it for free. It's my give back to the bodybuilding community. You don't pay for nothing. You don't got to put a credit card in. You're not going to get charged. It's a free experience. I give back to you to give you better, examples of everything out there, what you need to be doing, what you need to work on. If you want to be a wellness competitor, you don't know what division, it could be your first show, it could be your 50th, you could already be a pro. You'll have a lot of a great experience coming along doing this. It's a free 7-day coaching experience with me, one-on-one. So come do it, hit that button, subscribe. Takes you 1 minute to sign up. You can grab your phone now, type it in. You'll be in there talking to me in the app in the next 5 minutes before this video ends. We could already be chatting about your goals and what you're aiming to do, right? So check that out. Don't miss out on this. I'm going to get rid of it soon. So it's one of those things where now is the time. Okay. From the back, massive differences. Some really positive, some maybe not as positive. Issa was very close to just keeping this title. I'll say that. She was right there. Oh, so close. So many things to talk about here, though. So we look at Issa over here, 2024. Ultimately, very good wellness looking physique, because the upper body is not detracting. We do see some of that shoulder shape. We see some of that come down, all good. We see over here, good balance from, the glutes and the quads, a lot of quads from the back. That sweep from the back is always top wellness look. Upper glute development is there. The tie-in's three-dimensional and full. It's popping. It's heavy. It's all good. She's definitely a little bit more of that symmetrical look that year versus 2025. So massive improvements for Issa across the board. I mean, even from this position, her shoulders look a bit better. They look a little bit more full from the back, which is interesting because they look pretty lean up front, but maybe she's a little bit more dominant back here, which wouldn't surprise me with all the heavy training she's got to do for the posterior chain. But it showcases pretty well. It tapers in well. These are again, the torsos are apples to apples, pretty similar at this point. Lower body wise, biggest differences across the board. So she made some pretty massive improvements to her upper glute, her overall glute density, and her quads, her hamstrings. Just really brought a lot more muscle. Like, she definitely was not one to not improve coming into this. So that's very, very good for her. She really did dial that in. She brought it, and it's pretty much very well noted. Biggest difference, though, that I see, right? The biggest difference I see. we could have got more 3D out of the glutes in general, right? A little bit more of that tie and pop, a little more fullness to the upper glute, overall glute density. These are the points that Eduarda really beat her on, I think, because we're talking about just points of separation. Probably could have seen a little more volume in the hamstrings, a little more in the quads as well. So to me, it looks like Isa may have just been a tad under her peak, where if she had filled out just a little bit more, she probably would be the current Olympia wellness champion. Because, she did have all those same things. Eduarda and her are so close, but these are the biggest differences. And she did really improve her physique a lot, looking at last year to this year. So this is a very clear marker, though, either way for everybody, with Eduarda and her being top two. Wellness is really going into the muscled zone of the lower body, the density, the development, without doing it in the mutant side, right? Like there's some of these mutants out there that we talked about, like some of these wellness athletes look so big, so lean. You still want to be softer, you still want to have that muscle in shape, but you really want to be lower body dominant. I mean, that's really what Isa spent her time improving on. She really just upsized that lower body. So go figure, the only asymmetrical women's division where the lower body is supposed to be dominant. Judges want more dominance there. Isa right there, if she just had a little bit more of that 3D to that glute, she might be the champion right now, because that's where her and Eduarda were like neck and neck fighting for that placing. And I think that Eduarda did bring just a little bit more of that. Again, I'm going to cover that again in a separate video, or if you want to watch the full wellness breakdown, all the athletes top 16, becomes very clear what the judges are looking for at that point. So I want to know what you think. You think Isa was robbed? Should she have taken it? Should she have had it? Or does it make sense, Well, yeah, she improved a lot, but where Eduarda was still better. Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching. Coach Ryan is out.